Hey, I think you're muted there for a second.
I think I am. Sorry about that.
That's all right.
There we go. I think we got it now. The bugs are already out early. So we'll try one more time. I'm Michael Bishop with the Power Hour, welcoming Titans Rossi joining us on the show tonight. Rossi, great having you, as always, on the show.
Yeah, man, it's great to be on. It's great to be back on the show. I've been a little depressed because football's over. I'm actually kind of excited to see what the USFL has to offer. Um, I think I'm gonna get into that. Might even do some videos on it as well. But yeah, it's good to be talking Titans football with you, man.
Hopefully, it'll be a quick off season, so we won't have to worry about that too much.
Yeah.
But, I mean, overall, all in all, I guess the first Sunday, were you able to get through that pretty well?
Yeah. Like I said, man, it's a little depressing. Like I try to get into the NHL and I try to get into the NBA, and like I'm a big fan of the Predators. I'm actually going to the game tomorrow night. They're playing the Panthers, and it's like 15 minutes from my house. But I'm just not as big of other sports. Like, I mean, I like other sports, but I'm just not as into it as I am pro football.
So at this moment, it's just filling the time and just all the little bitty moments that we were hoping to have this football season with just draft talk, potential free agency talk, and we're going to have a lot to talk about it, especially right up till September 2nd, I believe.
Yeah, I can't wait for all the, free agent rumors and the draft and, all that type of stuff to get going.
And we'll definitely have plenty of that on tonight's show. But let's check out the comments real quick. Got to say a shout out to all our fans. Al Pierce joining in. Tighten up, guys. Let's rock. Go Titans. Kick massive tail. I guess in free agency we'll be kicking some tail. So I guess that's the best place to start. And of course, Al also said muted. Also, Slew Man said muted. Sorry about that, guys. Just early bugs today, but we worked it out. Good seeing you on the show, Lou Man. Always love having you on. And of course, shout out to my mom. Great having her on the show. She loves watching. So, love you, Mama. Great seeing you on here tonight. All right, Rossi, what do you say we jump into the top news so far? I think we got a few good topics to talk about starting out, so let's just get to it. So, right now, at this point, the biggest news story right now would be the NFL and the XFL agreeing to a partnership to basically be kind of a semi-pro league for the NFL, meaning that the XFL would test out new officiating rules, new coaching rules, and even have certain coaches and players go down to the XFL and possibly have a chance to be promoted to the NFL. And I got to say, I think this is a great move for both leagues. It helps promote the XFL, especially getting started in 2023, and that'll definitely get it a little more exposure with the USFL starting this year. And it gives the NFL what they've been missing since they folded the NFL EuroLeague, which is a stable of basically willing players that can be transferred back over to the States after having some time playing over in a different area. So, Rossi, from your perspective, do you think this is a good move? And do you think maybe this might even potentially bring in the USFL down the road?
I actually just saw this on the way home from work, or just heard it, and I'm super excited about this. I was a big fan of the XFL, you know, when it came back. I thought it was a great league. We had some great talent come to the NFL from the XFL. PJ Walker, obviously, probably the biggest name, and I think there was about 20 players that might have at least started a game this season from the XFL. So I'm super excited about it, and this is way overdue for the NFL.
And I give credit to Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson for really being the mastermind of this, knowing that he played in the league for a little while and he understands how the business works, and especially getting in a smaller version of it. You know, it helps expose the XFL, and I think that's what really hurt them in this second time around, there just wasn't anything stable for them to really kind of just plant roots in. But when you really look at it from this standpoint, the NFL, like I said, has been missing a key component to having like a semi-league, which has benefited, baseball and basketball. And even when the EuroLeague was around, it definitely was a situation where you had a team that could potentially pick from those other teams across the seas with potentially budding talent. So do you think right now that the XFL is doing itself a good service to just basically be the petri dish, as they're so saying?
I think so. Yeah. I think there's a few things that the XFL did that kind of the NFL inherited. I know one of them was like the flyover cams. One thing the XFL did that was really cool, and and I don't know if it ever worked in the NFL, but how they kind of did the 2 point thing, where it was like 1-on-1, and then I thought the kickoffs were kind of cool how they did that. So I think it's awesome. I think it's cool that they can kind of experiment with different rules and things like that in the XFL. Um, you know, and I guess this would be a whole nother subject, but I don't know if there's some way, like maybe the XFL could also be a training ground for referees, because as we saw this year, the officiating was, I think, one of the worst in a while as a whole in the league, and maybe this could be a training ground for them as well. I don't know.
And that's a great point you bring up. I think, you could potentially have referees in the XFL that could move up to the NFL.
Yeah.
Especially bringing new rule changes and being the first line that goes through these rule changes. So, what would you like to see the XFL experiment with first that you think would be beneficial for the NFL to pick up on maybe in a few years down the road?
I would like to see them experiment with new overtime rules, which I know they have before, but actually something that's really legitimate that could be and incorporated into the NFL. I would also like, I miss the kickoff returns, man. Like, I didn't like when they moved it, 5 yards forward, and now every kickoff is a touchback. I know it's like for safety reasons, and I don't know if there's any way you could get around that, but it would just be nice to see that return in some way, shape, or fashion in some form.
And that's a good point as well. I mean, I've talked to a few people, and I remember one of the suggestions that I was talking to with someone that's a real good friend of mine, and he said it might be beneficial to actually put less people on the field for the kickoff returns.
That would be a great idea, man. That's a pretty good idea. I've never thought about that or heard of that.
So you could possibly go from maybe 11 players to possibly, well, maybe 9 or maybe even 8 if you wanted to experiment on that with the XFL.
Yeah, that would be a good idea, actually.
I would definitely feel that could even possibly cut down on injuries, and you'd very well have a potential of seeing these guys get a good run back, which is something we've missed for the last maybe 5 to 6 years.
Yeah, I think that would be an awesome idea, man. And it's as the NFL, they don't like to change stuff like that drastically. So I mean, hopefully the XFL could be something, a proving ground for those type of things. And what would be cool, Mike, too, is like if they could incorporate, and like within the XFL, if they could have the fans, like get the fans involved and say like, hey, what are your ideas? Like how could we make the game better? And do something like that, which I don't know if they'd ever, consider that, but I think that'd be something cool you could use the XFL for as well.
And you could potentially use the USFL maybe down the road if things go well with the XFL. But the partnership will definitely go into effect 2023, and I'm very excited to see what this can bring. I like the fact that we have something in place now that can be a minor league system, and that could potentially bring up a lot of young, talented players that are potentially out of the NFL looking for work. So, hitting our next story, and of course, it's a story I'm sure everybody's talking about of, or tired talking about of, but apparently, the Washington Commanders, now as they're now known as, it appears Dan Snyder and his group are apparently under investigation again, with basically a slew of allegations at this point. And it's really turning the NFL to the point where they might have to just start finding a way to oust Dan Snyder just because this continues to be a problem. So, Rossi, I know there's a lot of things right now, and I'm sure you haven't read too much into the reports and everything, but with Dan Snyder, it's pretty easy to understand. He's just very much a very scrupulous character, and it just seems like trouble seems to have been following him in the last 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, and I haven't had time to look into that. I've heard some things here and there. You know, like you said, the way he is, it doesn't surprise me. It just makes me even more grateful that we have an owner like Amy Adams. You know, Snyder is another one of those owners that he likes to get his hands in everything. When it comes to player personnel, it's like Jerry West, um, and or Jerry Jones, Jerry West, but Jerry Jones, um, as far as that goes. But it doesn't surprise me, man.
And really, you bring up Jerry Jones, and it's a good point. Smart owners hire people and let them do their jobs. And you have owners that have strikes where they actually hit oil and then it dries out, kind of like an Al Davis or a Jerry Jones. But Dan Snyder's just basically been just a dry hole. Everything he's done, everything he's touched, is just slowly deteriorated at one point or another. So I know at this point the investigation it's going to be made available to the public, and the NFL is going to have to probably step ahead of this if they can. So, do you think it's potential that we might be seeing the last of Dan Snyder in the very up and coming weeks, or maybe even months?
I mean, we very well could. Is so he? How does that work with owners? Like, I mean, I guess Goodell could what? Suspend him or kick him out of being an owner? Like, I don't even know how that works technically.
Well, I think how it would go is kind of how the NBA bylaws would go if he violated somewhere in his contract that he signed with them, which it's basically just me just speculating on what the NBA has done because I feel that it's going to be about the same process. If it's somewhere in the contract that he's violated, then that basically puts them to where they can remove him, but it would probably have to come to a vote with the other owners.
Okay.
But my apologies, I was saying weeks. It may be maybe years or even months or years at this point. But, the allegations have piled up in the last few years even. And, the emails that came out with John Gruden were basically just a stepping stone. And whatever we didn't get to see surely was going to be a situation where it's going to unravel even more. And with this second investigation, it's really starting to show that with them stepping up and the NFL hiring a former, I believe it was a former judge from the Southern District of New York that's going to be overseeing the case. So I think the biggest question right now is if the NFL does decide to move on with Daniel Snyder, who would be one of the guys that they might target to possibly sell to that might actually make a change to this team that Washington fans are dying for?
As far as owners go, um, I'm not really sure. I don't really know like what names are out there as far as owners. I know that they need a big change. That's for sure. I mean, um, it's a the name. A lot of people have made fun of the name, the Commanders. There's so many other names they could have went with, and I don't know if the fans were involved in that or not. If they weren't, they very well should have been as far as choosing a new name. But they got a lot of work to do with that organization, and When's the last time they've really been competitive? I mean, it was probably who was the quarterback? Like Brett Ripien or or whoever it was.
Oof.
Or didn't the guy from that played with? Did Brad Johnson play for them, or
Brad
did he?
Johnson did play with them.
Okay,
It's back in the late
maybe
'90s.
maybe that was the last time they had a decent team for what I can remember.
I know Jason Campbell was with him, and he was a steady quarterback. He wasn't great, but
Yeah,
he was steady enough if he just didn't have to go through 7 offensive coordinators. But with the ownership, I've heard one name get bounced around to a lot of teams, and it makes a lot of sense. Jeff Bezos, the Amazon
oh
founder, would
wow.
definitely be one of the guys that continues to come up in conversations, and the man has the money to spend if he wants.
Yeah, it's just chump change to him. So that would be interesting. I mean, does the man even is he even into football really? I mean, I guess he wouldn't have to be as long as he has the right pieces in place, you know.
I know there were reports earlier this year that he was interested in talking with a group that was potentially going to go after the Broncos. And somewhere I've heard the Bears have even come up in certain conversations at times.
Wow, that's crazy, man. It'd be interesting to see what he would do.
But also getting back to your point, just with certain owners in control, just Dan Snyder's just amazing to me as just a person that continues to find himself in just bad situations. Even more so, it's the fact that this is a man that looks like he picks players and coaches like a 5-year-old has pasted up on his wall when he's a kid. It's like, ooh, this coach is available. I'm going to go hire him. Just like what he did when he went and got Joe Gibbs. Or he'll go after certain defensive players. Or they'll trade the farm for an offensive player and Robert Griffin III, which I think would have been a good football player if he didn't tear his ACL.
Yeah, it's crazy how Snyder does things, man. It's and I don't know if any move has really been successful in the last couple decades. I mean, it's I just don't understand the how you run an organization like that. I mean, does he have so much? I mean, he's the owner, obviously. Does he have so much power that you know? I don't know. He doesn't take any advice from anybody else. But yeah, I mean, you're right, dude. He's always trading a farm. He's always spending a ton of money. And like I said, I'm just grateful that our owners aren't like that.
Agreed. If there's one thing, it's Mama Amy isn't afraid to spend the money, but she spends it wisely, and she listens to her
Exactly.
football people.
Exactly.
Definitely got to get a shout out to our buddy. Let's Tighten Up podcast. My guy, thanks for joining us on the show. And it looks like Titan Anderson coming in the house. TA, what's up? Good seeing you, buddy.
What's up, TA?
Everybody's watching the show tonight.
Awesome.
And then finally, in our breaking news today, the biggest story going on at the moment that's not Major League Football player related, it's actually coach related. Sean McVay could potentially be making around $15 million a year to either go to Amazon or even ESPN. And Rossi, I'll let you start with this. Sean McVay is only 36 years old right now, and if he wanted to stay, I guarantee you LA would be more than happy to give him a contract extension. But what do you think would be in his best interest right now? Do you think that it would be best for him to stay with the Rams, or do you think that the TV deal is something that comes around once in a while that's worth taking?
I mean, I guess it depends on what he wants individually and for his family. Obviously, being an NFL coach is extremely demanding, and it's practically a year-round gig. Because they're always doing something, even during the off season, even before free agency even starts in March. But you know, a lot of people have different opinions on McVay. Like, is he really that good of a coach? Yes, he just won a Super Bowl, but he also had all those superstar players, and they traded the farm for all of them. Um, but I think he is a decent coach. I like him as a coach. I think it would be a shame if he didn't keep coaching at least for a little while. But it's all about his family too. If he doesn't want as much stress and he's going to make a ton of money talking about football in the media, then why not, right?
And that's a great point you bring up. I know McVay's gone on record saying he would like to have more family time, and certainly being an NFL head coach is demanding and time consuming. So, really, along those lines, like I said, the Rams would be more than willing to pay him what he wants to stay. But when it comes down to it, I think one thing that a lot of television channels have been missing, especially as an analyst, is somebody that understands the game very fluidly. And Sean McVay has one of the best football minds that I've seen in a long time. He continues to impress me, especially with the fact that he can continue to just look up old plays from 3 years ago and tell you what was ran, who ran it, and it was possibly from a practice squad game. So, with that in mind, just out of curiosity, what network do you think McVay would work best with? With Amazon, who's supposed to take over Thursday Night Football, or would he work well at ESPN that's really trying to find something more solid?
I mean, I would like to see him on ESPN, to be honest, if he's gonna pursue the media route. I mean, it might be cool to get on Amazon and kind of jumpstart that with him. I think he would be a huge media guy. I mean, if he does join the media and does that, man, he could be one of the best at it probably. I mean, he's so charismatic. Like you said, he knows the game. I think, I just think it'd be a shame to see him go away from coaching. I mean, you just win a Super Bowl. You're at the height of your career. And the guy, I like how he coaches. Like I said, there's a lot of people who are kind of up in the air about him, but that's not fans of LA or whatever. But I like him as a coach. I remember watching him on Hard Knocks, and I thought he was a great motivator and a really good coach. It'd be a shame to see him go away from the game and coaching, in my opinion.
And I agree with that, but I think I take into factor, especially, McVay's going to be going multiple years without a first-round pick. And
Yeah.
the Rams' salary cap is going to be messy, just to say it nicely. So I kind of see it as a situation. I think McVay knows that maybe Stan Kroenke bit off a little more than he can chew. And historically, teams that do eventually go all in for a Super Bowl, they kind of go through a pretty rough patch afterwards. I mean, look at how bad Denver's been since Peyton Manning retired.
Yeah. And one thing too, like I'd like to bring up with you and just kind of get your thoughts on it. And I thought about this since all the Aaron Rodgers talk, started up before with the Titans and all that. And you think about Tampa Bay and bringing in Brady and, like you said, the Broncos. The NFL is changing now. It's almost, it's not becoming like the NBA, but it happens a lot in the NBA. Let's just trade and win a championship or two. Like, to me, is it worth it trading away your future for just one Super Bowl in a 10-15 year period of time, and then you're a losing team for years and years after, or is it worth it having a winning franchise for 5, 7, 8, 10 years in a row? It's just, it's kind of like we've gotten into this age, and I don't know if it's just because of how society in general now. It's like we want results and we want it right now. When we take a picture on our phone, we want to see it right there, and we want to judge it with our own eyes right immediately. You know, in a way, it's for like the Titans go. We've been winning for quite a few years now. Of course, I would love to have a Super Bowl, but do you trade away everything you have just for one Super Bowl in 20 years? I don't know.
I mean, it's a loaded question, and it's a good question at that. And my honest answer is it's all about building, and it's all about personality and finding the right personalities. Just because you trade for a superstar somewhere else, that doesn't mean they're going to automatically just click as soon as they get traded with that team. It takes, time. It takes training. It takes working together. You have to know how your other players work, especially as the quarterback. You have to be comfortable in the offense. It's a slew of things. It's more complicated, and people want to take it and put it in a little box like it's not such... It's a Rams thing where they can trade and it worked. The thing is, Matt Stafford's a smart quarterback. Sean McVay is a smart head coach, and he knows how to get the best out of his players. In Tennessee's... And basically, what they're in right now, it's trying to find what we can do to make the pieces work with what we have.
Yeah.
You can't just break the bank, especially around a situation where we know we're going to be on the hook for a lot of dead money, especially if we just release somebody, depending on who the player is. And I mean, I've seen plenty of people go after Tannehill saying release him. It's not the smart thing to do. And trade-wise, it's got to match up with what we're trading for. You have to understand, yes, we could trade for Aaron Rodgers, but you got to remember, Green Bay's $45 million in a hole. They're not going to want to take on a contract slightly more that of what Aaron Rodgers is making. Because that's not a win-win situation.
And I was one of those people. I was at the game, at the Bengals game. I was pissed after the game. You know what I mean? I was like, Tannehill. I was so mad. But, after I calmed down and I thought about it, I would like to see what Tannehill can do with a better offensive line. With better offensive line play. You know what I mean? With maybe we need another receiver. We don't really have that. I mean, yeah, we have Nick Westbrook, we have Julio, but we don't really have like that third guy that's like a speedster or something, I mean, we have some guys on the practice squad, but they're not proven yet, I mean, I'm a huge Mason Kinsey fan, but he's not proven yet, you know what I mean? Like, we need playmakers.
And Rossi, I'm glad you brought that up, because you and I tonight are going to get those playmakers.
Nice.
We're going to get those playmakers tonight. So let's take our first 30-second break. When we come back, we're going to get a transcending star first. We're going to get somebody that I know will help make this offense go. And it's surprising no one's talked about it as much as I thought they would, but you and I are going to be the first to talk about it. So I'm Mike Bishop with the Power Hour. Joining me is Titan Rossi. We'll take a quick 30-second break. You're watching the Power Hour. Back in 30. The Power Hour is on the air, live streaming to you on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Twitch. God, I love saying that. I'm your host, Michael Bishop, and thank you for joining us on this Monday evening. Joining us tonight is the famous Titan Rossi. Always great to have our buddy Titan Rossi on the show. Thank you for joining us once again, man. I want to give you a chance to shout out to the fans and let them know where to find you, as always.
Yeah, man. Thanks for the kind words. And yeah, you can find me on YouTube, Titans Rossi, and Twitter at Titans Rossi.
Go find the man. He knows what he's doing. We love all our friends at the Titans Upload Network. Always great to have them on the show. Titan Rossi, always a good friend. Always good insight. He'll never let you down. All right, Rossi. Let's see if we got any new comments. And from our buddy Lou Man, good comment, Big Mike. Well, can't remember what the comment was, but thank you. I'll take the compliment. All right, Rossi, what do you say we jump on the little screen and bring in a dynamic playmaker that Tennessee might very well make a huge difference with. So, Rossi, let me ask you this first. What is the one position that could be all the difference for the Tennessee Titans in the 2022 year?
I mean, the obvious answer is obviously, personally, in my opinion, tight end. All of our tight ends are free agents this offseason. Like literally, I think our three tight ends are free agents. I think we gotta invest in tight end, whether that be in free agency, the draft. The unfortunate thing is that what do you do in the first round? You know what I mean? Do you draft a wide receiver? Are the tight ends in the first round even first round? Are they first round picks? Can you get a decent tight end in the third round? Do you trade? I mean, there's so many things you could do. Do you trade the first round pick? I really wish we could go out there and get a dynamic tight end. I love Trey McBride coming out of in the draft. I don't know if he's a first. I have to do some more research on him, but as far as him being like a first round talent, or if he'll make it to 26, where we could pick him. There's a lot of tight ends that are going to be available this year in free agency. You're looking at Gesicki from Miami, Dallas Schultz, or is that his name, Dallas or Dalton Schultz?
I believe it's Dalton Schultz. I think that's right.
And there's quite a few other players. I think O.J. Howard is going to be available. You got a lot of good tight ends out there that can fit.
Well, Rossi, what if I told you this? What if I told you I could find a potential Hall of Fame tight end, and he's definitely well worth the money? Okay. And we all know who it is at this point. It's Gronk.
Yeah.
Gronk is out there. Gronk is a free agent. And Gronk doesn't have to do a whole lot for us. We've already got good wide receivers, if we decide to keep some of them. And that's going to be curious to see how we do that. But I do feel that you're going to see significant cuts. And I think Tennessee's going to make the right cuts with the right players in order to make some of this money flow back in and out of the negative. But you need a dynamic playmaker. You need a guy that's reliable. You need a guy with playoff experience and Super Bowl experience. Who better than Rob Gronkowski?
Man, I love Gronk. And he had a good year. You know what I mean? Like, he's still got
especially injured.
Exactly.
And he was injured.
He's still got it. I mean, that's the one thing with him is, the injury concerns. But I would love to see Gronk in a Titans uniform. And he can block too. I mean, he's a good tight end.
He can do it all. He can block. He can run the routes. He can make catches uncontested. And throughout his career, that's what he's done. In 11 years, 621 receptions, over 9,300 yards, and 92 touchdowns, which he'll more than likely break 100 next season if he decides to play. And he's already said he wants to play. Already spoke a little interest in talking with Cincinnati, maybe, potentially playing with them. But I think of it this way. What does Cincinnati not have that Tennessee has?
Yeah.
An elite defense.
Yeah.
So, as an offensive player, I want to go somewhere with two key components. I want a quarterback that's reliable, and I want a defense that's going to be the difference maker here. Now, Tannehill, of course, has regressed, but I feel that Mike Vrabel has made a lot of smart moves. I think the Tim Kelly hiring was one of the biggest ones.
Yeah, I think it was a great hiring. I can't wait to see what he's going to do. There's another tight end that a lot of people actually did a poll, which tight end would you want out of these particular four. But, people wanted David, how do you say it, Njoku, to play for Cleveland. A lot of people want him, which kind of surprises me. Like, that was the number one. That and Zach Ertz. Were like the number 1 and 2, which are both good options. But like Gronk is just a dynamic He's just a game changer type of tight
Exactly.
end.
Exactly. You need a transcending star at the tight end position. And for Ryan Tannehill, that's a safety valve. That's about the best safety valve any quarterback could ever hope for.
And he didn't have it this year.
Not at all.
Just it was. I mean, Swain made some good plays. Ferkser kind of came on at the end, but Ferkser didn't even really play tight end. He lined up in a wide receiver position most of the time.
And even Michael Pruitt was coming on a little strong before he ended up getting hurt in the Miami game.
And that was a shame, man. That was a shame that he got hurt like that. I really like Pruitt.
But you just look at a lot of the tight ends out there. Yes, you want a younger tight end, but Tennessee's got a window. And at this point, bringing Gronk in elevates that to a door.
Yeah, I agree with you, man. I would love to see him. A lot of people like Max Williams too. They think he's got a lot of upside. Guy who played for Arizona, but yeah. I mean, if you're going for the window, then I think Gronk is a guy that you should look at if he's not too expensive.
And I think it's going to cost a little money, but that's the thing. If you want to win a Super Bowl, you're going to have to spend money like the Rams did. You're going to have to be a little risky.
Yeah.
And in this case, you don't have to eventually replace the quarterback, but I'm going to get the best damn weapons I can get and surround him with them. Yeah. So what would it take potentially to get Gronk? Well, I did my figures and I bounced it around with a buddy, and I think this is a solid deal right here. You want him for a year, $9 million, $7.2 million of that is on the signing bonus. That should get him in.
Yeah, it seems like a reasonable price. They got a lot of work to do, the front office with the Titans, as far as restructuring, releasing. It's going to be very interesting to see what happens this offseason with our roster.
And I really feel that the offensive line is going to be the one that's going to take a blunt of that hit. I think that's going to be the interesting part. I don't have any doubt J-Rob can scrape together the money to do what he has to do. It's just going to be interesting to see who's going to go, and we may even see a couple surprises along the way.
Yeah, I have an ominous feeling that Luan's going to be gone. The fan side of me doesn't want that to happen, but I don't know. I don't see how they're going to bring him back unless he'll restructure. I don't know.
Like you said, best we know right now is it's just speculation. And I mean, the offensive line's the obvious place to start. Saffold's definitely probably going to be a casualty there. We know Janoris Jenkins will more than likely be. Lamb, where they signed last year to be their tackle, and that didn't work out at all. That's definitely going to be a move. And even Julio Jones might potentially be a move there. But I mean, honestly, whatever it takes, we need to find the playmakers that are going to help elevate this offense. Offensive line is a situation where I know we can find good guys in the draft and replace guys as we move along. But when you get a chance to get a Rob Gronkowski on your team and potentially elevate your Super Bowl status, you make that move.
Yeah, it would be awesome to see him in two-tone blue, for sure.
And just adding the Tennessee Titans to his already Hall of Fame career. All right, guys. We're going to take a quick 30-second break again, and when we come back, it's time to talk a little mock draft. I know, some of you are like, oh no, more mock drafts. Why are you putting me through this? Well, it's my show, and I'm going to do it. And Rossi gave me a good set of draft picks, and I made a set of my own, so you won't be disappointed. So hang around. We'll be back in 30 seconds. I'm Michael Bishop of the Power. Tired of not being able to find the Power Hour on YouTube? Getting frustrated? There's got to be a better way. Well, now there is. Hey Alexa, find the Power Hour Tennessee Titans. All right. It's that simple. So sit back, relax, and watch every old episode, and new ones drop every Monday at 7 p.m. Eastern. And don't forget, subscribe, like, and ring the bell for more content. and Twitch, and I'm on mute again. The bugs are killing me today. You know where you are. You know who I am. Welcome to the show. Titan Rossi's our guest tonight. Let's jump into it, Rossi. That's all I've got. And Rossi, you sent us your mock draft, and I definitely want you to get a chance to go over the guys that you liked. And starting at 26, you definitely decided shore up the tackle position with Trevor Penning, which I felt had a very strong Senior Bowl. So what can you tell about us about going with tackle on this one?
As much as I hated to do that, just because we've kind of striked out a little bit in that area, which I mean we'll see with Radens. I think Radens has a definitely promising future, and if they let go of Luan, we could see Radens slide in there, and they might not take a tackle. Now, you need a right tackle, obviously. I mean, Quesenberry is just not getting the job done. I just can see the Titans going in that direction. And if you got a guy like Trevor Penning available at that spot, it'd be hard to pass up. I mean, he's a really good tackle. I think he's a guy that can pretty much start right away. And we need offensive linemen. We need to retool some of the offensive line. I mean, it all starts in the trenches, and we can't keep letting Tannehill just get massacred back there,
And I agree with that. I really like Penning's Senior Bowl. I liked a lot of the film that I've watched of him so far. And you felt solid enough that it wasn't worth trading, that Penning was worth keeping at 26. And I definitely understand that, especially with Quisenberry being more than likely. I don't think they'll renegotiate a deal with him. I think he'll want a little more money. So you have to find a more solid anchor there at that position. So Penning I like there. And I'll move to 90 with John Michie. And Michie's a hard prospect for me because you have some people that say he could go the second or third round, and you have some people potentially saying he could fall out of the draft altogether with that injury. So I like the pick at 90, but I guess my biggest question is he going to be ready before the season starts, or is he going to be a project?
Yeah, and I didn't know a lot about Michie when I picked him. It was kind of a quick thing, and I looked at him, and when I saw a video of him playing, and I was like, like this guy, this guy could be a great player for us. But, in hindsight, if I went back to pick again, I probably wouldn't have chose him, because I'm just like, at this point, I feel like we don't need to pick anybody that has an injury like that again. Like, I don't know. I just feel like we should stick with a more solid type of pick. But Michie is an interesting prospect. He's got great, strong hands. He can catch in traffic. I think he could be a great player in NFL. But like you said, the injury concern is obviously the thing that stands out.
But I mean, on the positive aspect, Michie was predicted to go in the first round before his injury. So I don't have a problem with him coming at 90. It's just, I know the injury occurred during the SEC championship, so his healing time is going to be very sporadic at best. So if you have to take a chance on an injured guy, I think Michie's one of the guys you take a chance on. I think eventually, especially with the receivers that we have right now, you're not having to throw him in the mix too soon. So eventually he'll get his way up, even if he's coming in late at training camp.
Yeah.
And then at 128, he went with Jeremy Ruckett from Ohio State. And I've got a chance to watch a little bit of film on him, and I'm very pleased with his hands. I just think one thing he needs to work on is his blocking. But overall, I think he's got a potential to be a very solid tight end.
Yeah, he's got really good hands. I need to go back and watch the Senior Bowl, because I'm pretty sure he played in it. But yeah, as far as the block, the Titans obviously love tight ends who can do it all, who can block and and everything else. But what I love about Rucker is he can make catches in traffic. You know what I mean? Like he can snatch the ball out of there and make catches, make tough catches across the middle, things like that. I think at that spot, it would be a good pickup for us. I don't, I don't think he's going to be a starter right away or anything. But if we could get a tight end in free agency, maybe he's somebody you could be your second or third tight end or something if he could get up to speed.
And looking at 140 with Cade Mays, and I love this pick right here. Cade Mays has the body of an offensive tackle, but he has played the offensive guard position last year, and he did it very well. I think one thing he needs to work on is his footwork and just potentially just not getting beat on the edge if they do decide to let him play tackle, because I think he could play guard or tackle. But along those lines, I like that pick at 140. So what stood out the most is potentially bringing him in.
Um, I'm a Tennessee Vols fan. I love the way he plays. He's a big guy. He's like 320 pounds or something. You're right. I mean, he is a guy that could potentially be a tackle. You know, with Saffold possibly being gone, you're going to need a guy who can step in there as far as in the guard position. I feel like Cade Mays is good enough, and this might be crazy to say, and some people might say, "Oh, you're crazy." I think he could be good enough to start in his first season. Now, would you want him to? I don't know, but I think he could be a great project, and I just really love the way he plays the game. You know, he's a big nasty player, um, and I like that about him.
And then going in at 168, and this was interesting to me. It makes me think that the Titans aren't going to retain any of their old tight ends at this point. So this is what my thought process was of you taking this draft pick with James Mitchell from Virginia Tech. But what stood out to make Mitchell worth another tight end pick?
And that you're exactly right. I could almost see the Titans doing that. And this, my thinking on it all, and like I said a little bit ago, was, I think the Titans are going to definitely get somebody in free agency. I just don't see how you do it any other way. Just because this tight end class this year is not like there's not a bunch of like dynamic tight ends in the draft. You might have one in McBride, and that's even questionable as far as that goes. But I really like Mitchell, man. I think he's a good blocker as well, and he's a guy that you can. I don't know if he's going to be any better than Nicole Pruitt was or anything like that, but this was kind of just a necessity pick for me.
And it's fine. Like sometimes you have to add depth, and I like the depth add. So
Yeah.
I think Mitchell very well will likely get a start on special teams and eventually work his way up into the offensive lineup. And then going in at 205, you took Cam Taylor-Britt from, was it Nebraska?
Yeah, Nebraska. I've seen
And
a little film on the guy. He's a pretty good ball player. Like I don't know a lot about him, but it was basically just a cornerback depth pick for us. I think if Jenkins is gonna be gone, it's gonna be really interesting to see what they do with Farley, and if Farley can come back and be good and play. You know what I mean? Like I in a way, a lot is kind of hinging on Farley, and it's like, what do you do? Because that's a difficult thing. Like you're gonna need somebody. If they don't keep Jenkins, which I don't think they're gonna keep Jenkins, do you?
I think he's going to get cut personally.
Yeah, I mean, there's some good cornerbacks out there in free agency, I just don't want to see us. Man, we need a good cornerback. Hopefully, Farley can step into that role, but it's kind of what do you do? You know what I mean? Because you don't know at this point if Farley's going to be able to do that, and if you don't pick up somebody in free agency, then and you let Jenkins go, then you're stuck with relying on Farley to be that person, to be that player to step in. Um, I think cornerback's something we definitely need to address.
And I don't mind adding cornerback depth. I mean, especially if they decide to go with Farley or if they decide to add somebody in free agency. But you do definitely need to bring in some young blood.
Yeah.
I haven't had a chance to watch a film on this young man, but I definitely will now that you brought him up. But you can find value anywhere in the draft. You just have to know where to find it. And this is a very solid draft. I like what you did. I like the fact that you doubled down on tight end. You weren't afraid to go and bring in new guys. That's important that you keep your lineup fresh. And I think that's especially important with this team where they have to keep the experience they have with the process of adding new faces in.
And another thing about Britt, real quick, and he's a real rangy player. And the reason I picked him, and when I got to that pick, I was kind of looking at like the best available, and there was some articles about him even potentially being a starter later on down the road in the NFL, and I was like, man, I don't know much about him. If you got a guy like that that's available at that pick, then why not take him?
And I mean, Tennessee's in a position where they have needs to fill, but sometimes when there's a guy that can make a difference on your team that's worth taking, you take him. And I don't have a problem with that.
I mean,
Exactly.
Molden did a great job. I mean, underrated probably, that was a great pick. And I love how they're using him. I love, the spot that they put him in. I think Molden's got a great future with us. You think I don't know if Molden has the speed. You'd probably like to keep him in the spot that he's in. I don't see him being an outside corner, do you?
I mean, he's played corner in college, but he just looks more comfortable in the safety position, which,
Yeah.
we have Byard and we have Hooker, which surprisingly graded high in the
Yeah.
PFT football review, which was surprising to me. So if Hooker stays healthy and Byard continues to stay healthy, if we can find the right type of lockdown corner to go next to Fulton, this team would be scary on defense even more than they are now.
It really would be, man. Jenkins got a little better later on in the season, but you need somebody there with better speed. And man, it would be awesome to see us bring in somebody or just get somebody that can. It almost seems like in a way that was the missing piece on defense. You
At
know?
times it did because you felt we
Yeah,
kind of got burned in that position.
yeah.
And Al Pierce brought up a good point. He said, "Do either of you think we'll trade back out of the first round and pick up more draft capital, including a second round pick?" Well, Al, I've got good news for you. I'm going to put up my mock draft now, and I hope you're pleasantly surprised with that. Or at least I hope I did well enough to surprise you with it. So, here's my way too early mock draft, number 1 edition, 2023. So, I already know I've got to find a potential playmaker. And what do I do? Do I take the draft at 26? Do I take my pick at 26, or do I trade back? Well, guess what? The phone just rang. Who's on the other line? It's Detroit.
Hmm.
Detroit wants to come back up, and they want to come back up, and they want to draft a certain player. And I'm like, okay, what are you going to give me in exchange, Detroit? How about the 31st and their 66 for our 26, which I'm fine with. And guess who's still on the board? Traylon Burks, wide receiver of Arkansas, 66 receptions, 1,404 yards, 11 touchdowns, and he's pretty good at running the ball as well. What teams are doing a lot of now is getting speedy receivers in the backfield and running the ball. So yes, I'm going to make this trade. This is a dynamic receiver who I feel has great hands. He's physical. He reminds me a lot of Alshon Jeffrey or even a cheaper version of Andre Johnson.
Yeah, I love Burks, man. I've actually picked him in a lot. I mean, I've done probably like 10 little mock drafts on my phone, but I love that pick, man.
You got to get speed. You got to get physical. AJ can't do it all by himself. And if the Titans decide to keep Julio Jones, you've got another playmaker in the mix, especially with the younger receivers we're bringing up. But you need a difference maker. And everything that we need, he has. So what are we also going to get for pick 66 now that we've taken that in the trade? Well, that's easy. Let's address the offensive line. Sean Ryan from UCLA, in my mind, is the next best tackle that's not named Evans from Alabama.
Okay.
Not only can he play left tackle, he's played time at right tackle and did very well. And he's only allowed 1 sack from last year. So not only are you bringing in somebody that can play the right tackle position, if you have to switch him up, he's dynamic, he's physical, he gets his feet on the ground, and when he gets a hold of a guy, he gets them blocked. So Quisenberry is out, and I have potentially locked in their next starting offensive tackle.
I like that pick, man.
So what are we going to do next? We'll be sitting with pick number 90. Well, I got a phone call. Hang on. Who's at the other end? It's Cleveland. Cleveland's interested in moving up. What are you going to give me to move up, Cleveland? Well, let's see. Give me 104, 154 for 90. Deal. So what are we going to take for 104 while sitting here? I think I'm going to take one of the most underrated tight ends in the draft at Cade Otton. Yes, he's only had 28 receptions, 250 yards, and 1 touchdown, but I like this kid. I feel he just was in the wrong system, and he just didn't benefit from the coaching there. Sometimes you just see a guy with raw talent, and it's worth molding. And I look at what Otton has. I love his speed. I love his field direction. I love how he gets physical on the line. That's what Tennessee needs.
I've heard about that guy. I need to look into him some more, but I've heard his name pop up.
He's very, very underrated in my opinion, and I think he's going to get underlooked a lot, especially from his stats. But in this case, you just got to look at the film. I like what I saw with what he brought on the field. I like his tenacity. He's the kind of kid Mike Vrabel wants. Kind of think of a lighter Jason Witten. He just hasn't reached his potential yet.
Yeah.
And I think the right offense you could. So let's address the offensive line. I got to go with Cade Mays. Like you said, I've watched a lot of film of his. I've seen him playing games. I really feel that he can play at the tackle position or at guard. He's more suited for guard. But I feel that this basically fixes your Saffold problem. I think he locks in at that position. I think he's ready to play. He's grown up in an NFL family. He knows what he's doing.
I would love to see him in a Titans uniform.
If you got to get anybody from Tennessee this year, Rashae Jones or Cade Mays might be the best pickups.
Yeah.
So what am I going to do next? Let's see. I've gone offensive. Now I got to fix some things on the defense. And unfortunately, we've got some linebackers that we're potentially going to lose with Jayon Brown and Rashaan Evans. So I've got to find replacements for them. How about Leo Chenal from Wisconsin? I'm going to trade with Baltimore on this one too. They want 139. I'm going to get 140 and 231 in return. So, yeah, call me Trader Mike over here because I'm throwing them out. So Leo Chenal from Wisconsin, 55 solo tackles, 2 for loss, and 8 sacks. I love this kid's speed. His natural position's at the inside linebacker, and he is phenomenal at getting to the ball carrier or the quarterback. He basically has an extra gear when the ball snaps. He's attentive to wherever the runner is going. He is quick to get to the play, and he is just a Mike Vrabel guy through and through. Moving on to our next pick. And I think I need to get another wide receiver, especially since we've lacked a lot of big playmakers. But I'm also looking for somebody that could potentially run the ball back during kickoff returns. So who's out there? How about Brian Robinson Jr.? But I guess we'll call him a running back because he's a running back. I guess I jumped the gun, so that's my fault. But let me back up there. Let's go with Brian Robinson Jr. here. And we already know Deontay Foreman more than likely will probably go somewhere else. He had a great season, and I think there's plenty of teams out there that are going to need a willing running back. So Donnell Hillard is more than likely, he could stay if he wants to, but I think he made a potential. So I think he could potentially leave or go. It's 50-50 at this point. Darrington Evans is the thing that I'm thinking of the most. How many times has he been injured over the year? How many times have we needed him to step up, and he hasn't done that yet? We need a reliable number 2 or a third down back that is going to make a difference in the running game. We can't keep letting Derrick Henry continue to tote the rock like he is. He can do the job, but you need to be more sparingly with him. So I like Robinson at this position. He's run for over 13,043 yards, 14 touchdowns, and when he gets the ball in the backfield and runs for receptions, 35 of them, 296 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And he's a little speedster, and he can switch the field when he gets going.
Yeah, he's an interesting prospect, man. I really wish we could keep Foreman. I don't think it's going to happen, but it would just be awesome to go into next season with Foreman and Henry. But if not, then yeah, you're right. We definitely need somebody back there. That's something we've lacked for really since we've had Henry. I mean, we haven't had anybody other than Foreman step up. But as far as when Henry's been there, been playing, McNichols was decent in certain ways, but we need somebody consistent.
You need a game changer. And Brian Robbins was Alabama's number 1 feature back. Why not bring another number 1 back to Tennessee?
I'm sorry, man. Yeah, but I've seen him play a lot. He's awesome.
And 615 podcast chiming in. I like Drake London from USC. I do too, but he wasn't available on that draft, unfortunately. And we also said Isaiah Spiller from Texas A&M. I did like Spiller. But I've got a lot of these drafts, so, I'm probably going to switch them up a lot.
Yeah.
But getting back to it, and originally, I felt Tennessee needed another wide receiver, especially somebody that I can use on kickoff returns. And the best guy available in this draft right now, and I'm surprised he was available, is Christian Watson. From North Dakota State, basically, they pump out football players at this point. This kid has speed, and he is a problem. Basically, his 2021 year, 43 receptions, 800 yards, 7 touchdowns. In punt returns, 15 attempts for 114 yards, and a touchdown, and kickoffs, he was 11 attempts for 227 yards. That stat right there just shows he's going to get up the field and get you potentially about up to the 40 or the 45, which is something Tennessee has drastically needed for the last 5 to 6 years.
And it'd be interesting to see, what he runs at the combine or his pro day. He's super fast.
I see him going up a lot higher. He could potentially go 4th round.
Yeah.
He's very easy to fall in love with if you watch his film, but I think he's a perfect fit for this offense. And I'm going to do another trade. Houston called me. They wanted 203. I got 205 and 241 for their trouble. And I'm going to go with an edge rusher. And Christopher Allen, and it's funny I go back to Alabama, but this was one I couldn't pass up. Christopher Allen, I had to go back to his 2020 stats. And he had 20 tackles, 5 sacks, 2 for losses, 1 fumble recovery because he suffered from a foot fracture in 2021. But I like this kid. High motor, good height, gets to the football. Was potentially going to be maybe a late first round, maybe even a second round pick before his injury. Potentially won't even maybe not get drafted in this draft, but I'm willing to take a shot at him.
Yeah, I don't know much about this guy, but yeah, I mean, if he's got the potential, then and he's available, then we might as well do it. I really liked our Monty Rice pickup from last season. A lot of people didn't, but I think Monty's going to be a good player for us too.
Oh, I have no doubt. But, if I got the opportunity to get somebody that can get to the football and put up solid numbers and get them in the 7th round, that just makes my defense more dynamic. Depth is everything. Man. So let's see. I also had a pick at 231. Let's address the center position. Ben Jones isn't going to be around forever, and I like Doug Kramer to potentially be his replacement. Did very well at Illinois, only allowed 1 sack and maybe 8 hurries. But through and out, he's been a solid wall for that Illinois team.
And I wonder if you think he'll be available then?
There's very potential that he could be available. Generally, some offensive linemen do slip through the cracks. I mean, at this point, you have a lot of cornerbacks, running backs, maybe even a few quarterbacks at this point. I think generally you have offensive linemen fall down at this position. It's usually due to injury or they're raw. Maybe they have trouble with certain aspects of their game. Surprisingly, he did fall this far in the draft, but there's a lot of good offensive linemen. He even had potentially some really good centers this year. So it wouldn't be shocking to see maybe at least a couple of good offensive linemen maybe in the 6th or 7th round. And finally, I've got pick 241 through the trade for Houston. What can I do to improve this team? What's the one position Tennessee has had inconsistency for at least the last 4 years?
Kicker.
Exactly. So what am I going to do here? I'm going to get the best kicker on the board. Not only can he kick field goals, he also punted. Let me introduce you to Cameron Dicker from Texas, also known as a.k.a. Dicker the Kicker. Throughout his career, 60 for 79 on field goals in 4 years. He's 206, 210 in extra points, and his career long was 57 yards. And as a punter, 2,200 yards. He averaged 46.8 per kick, and his longest was 78. So I have locked down Tennessee's kicker for the next 10 to 13 years.
I'm totally down for that, man. You see the kid with the Bengals. When was he?
Evan Fearson.
When was he drafted? What round?
I think he was drafted, I think it was somewhere between the 7th or the 6th round, but I was screaming last year at Tennessee to take that kid.
I mean, what a talent, man. My God. I mean, the nerves of steel that kid has, man. I mean, he was one of the main reasons they won a lot of games, I mean, the kid was incredible.
And at this point, drafting kickers shouldn't be a taboo subject anymore.
Yeah.
I've had an opportunity to dig up a little bit of film on him, and I like what I've seen. He's very solid. He's consistent. Even in the kicks that he's missed, it wasn't bad.
Yeah.
There's just certain situations and certain areas you get into, and you miss. That happens. No one's going to kick 100% of the time.
Yeah, you give him a pro coach, and, he could get better and better, too.
So, I think it's finally time Tennessee settles down and locks in the kicker position. Dicker the Kicker is now Tennessee Titan.
I'm 100% on that one, man.
We'll start a fan club. The nickname itself, that's marketable.
Yeah, man, for sure.
I mean, I'm just telling you, Tennessee, I will buy a Dicker the Kicker shirt if you make this a thing. I will go out and buy it.
Better than Fat Randy. I'm
I don't have a
saying.
problem. I don't have a problem with Fat Randy, but at the same time,
Name
it's like
wise.
that's just too good and too marketable not to pick up on.
Yeah.
All right, guys, we'll take a quick break, and when we come back, Rossi, the Titans are looking at potentially finding a new stadium, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. I'm sure you got a few ideas, and I got a few ideas of my own. I'm Michael Bishop of the Power Hour, and we'll be back in 30 seconds. As the new NFL season dawns upon us, Tennessee Titan fans have the ultimate desire, and that desire is to see their team hoist the Lombardi Trophy at the end of the season. And through it all, we expect a lot of great highs and maybe even a little lows. But it all comes to one thing, that we all love the two-tone blue. And going forward, fans are looking for something fresh, something new, something exciting. Looking for a show that's going to give you all the stats, highlights, and accolades that you're looking for? Well, it's time to jump into the new revolution. That is the Power Hour. The Power Hour's on the air, live streaming you on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Twitch. I'm your host, Michael Bishop, and I want to thank you all for joining us tonight on this Monday evening, and I want to thank Titan Rossi once again for joining us on the show. It's always great having you, my friend. We get a lot of great insight and a lot of laughs, and we're having a great time tonight.
Yeah, man, I appreciate it as always.
And don't forget, guys, if you love the show, help it grow. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Twitch, and TikTok at the Power Hour 615. Do it because you have the power to. And I like putting out content for you, so you know, the more you watch, the more I'll put out. So just giving it. All right, Rossi. On our last segment, it came out last week that the Tennessee Titans were basically exploring the situation that they had stadium-wise. A lot of us knew that they were talking about potentially doing upgrades and renovations, but apparently that is officially starting to look a little too expensive, and it might be the best option to build a new stadium. So, moving forward, what do you think the best option for the Titans are to go forward with a plan if they decide to move?
I would love to have a new stadium. I think Nashville has grown so much, especially in the last decade, that Nashville deserves it. You know what I mean? You see all these cities with all these awesome state of the art stadiums. I love Nissan Stadium. You know, it's our home. Dating back to when this brings back a lot of good memories for me. Especially when it was called Adelphia, the Delph, at one time. And this year we stepped it up as a fan base a lot. But, man, when we first came to Nashville, you couldn't hardly win in that place as far as opposing teams. I mean, it was a place that it was so loud, it was unbelievable. And it kind of reached that status again this year. It got kind of back to that level in some games. I would honestly love to see a stadium with a retractable roof. I don't want to see just like a straight up dome stadium, or I would love to have a stadium with a retractable roof. I think it would bring a lot to Nashville. I think you could do a lot with it outside of football. I guess the question would be is, what do you do with the stadium now? And where do you put it? Do you tear this one down and put it in the same spot? Then where would the Titans play? Would they have to play at Vanderbilt again? And Vanderbilt Stadium, I mean, God bless them, but that stadium is terrible.
For SEC standards, even for SEC, that's just
it's
horrid.
Terrible. Yeah, I've been to so many games there. It's just tight. It's old, man. It's just and I've seen a Titans game there when they first came to Nashville. My dad took us to see them play the Jets when they were still the Tennessee Oilers, and the Tuna, Bill Parcells, was coaching the Jets then. But where else could the Titans play in Nashville? I mean, TSU. I don't know how big TSU is.
Not very big, but I do have a I do have a solution for that, and it's not too complicated. It's a little easier than we're making it. And really, play at home. Just play at home. Next door, right near you, is a huge parking lot, big enough to fit a stadium. It's all right there. You can stay at home, play at home while they're building next door.
That's a heck of an idea. I like that. They should do that.
I mean, that entire area is consistently big enough, and right now you have Interstate Drive, which it's just basically kind of a cutoff from the highway. So you could potentially still have traffic come down there. It's just going to be a little lighter. I mean, I think the biggest thing you have to look at, there is a gas station right where that location is, but I don't have a problem with that. I mean, you could keep it there, or you could potentially move it next door. I don't think it's in harm's way. And I don't know about building code structure and stadiums and gas stations next to it, but I mean, if that's the case with Bristol Motor Speedway and a gas station next to that, I don't think a gas station next to a football stadium is a big deal.
I think that's an awesome idea. I didn't realize that area was that big, but yeah, I guess it is pretty big. You could definitely fit a stadium in there, and that would be a great idea.
And of course, I guess the biggest question is dome or open air. And I guess the biggest answer right now is, I'd like to take a look at the Titans' history. You go back to the Astrodome, and it was a key component, especially when the Houston Oilers decided to plant their flag there. And it was one of the most unique stadiums in all of sports, not just the NFL, all of sports. And what I liked about it the most is it had historical value. And I think that's one thing that I would like to see, especially with this new stadium built. Now, I brought this up with Paul Kuharsky, and he basically said, a 1966 style stadium in 2028, that probably wouldn't work so well. But that's not what I was trying to sell. You can take the best parts of something and incorporate it into something newer. And that's what I see with the Astrodome. I see little qualities there that you don't have to use all of, but are definitely worth placing in. And when you do that, and I think right now this is the best idea of what I have in mind, what this Titans stadium will look like. You need something eye-catching. You need something state-of-the-art. I think you need what you needed when you open the Astrodome. You need something that's going to change the game. And I love this beauty right here.
It looks like a spaceship, but that would be awesome. I would love that.
Now, you open this right here. I already think you've already put yourselves right up in the top tier with SoFi Stadium and Jerry World. That's what Tennessee needs. If they're going to try and say, we're the best, we're trying to compete with the best. We went out a few years ago and brought the draft to Nashville, and we're potentially saying we want to bring a Super Bowl to Nashville. This is what you need to put on the table. Now, I like the lights and everything, but me personally, I would love to see the bars red, just like the old lights are on top of Nissan Stadium. I would love that. It's gorgeous. Everything about it just screams and would get the NFL in just a tizzy to get football games in there.
Would this be a retractable roof?
Yes, it would. This would actually be an energy-efficient retractable roof, where the sunlight would hit it like on SoFi Stadium, and it would actually cool the stadium.
That would be so cool, man. I'm down with that one, bud. For real.
And Amy Adams has already shown she's not afraid to go after players that they need and do what they need to do to be successful. This right here is the ultimate commitment.
Yeah.
Amy Adams Struck, I'm telling you right now, if you want Nashville to succeed and to lock in a Super Bowl, but not only a Super Bowl, that's just the tip of the iceberg. I'm talking about you get the Music City Bowl and potentially one of the New Year's games and make it even bigger than it is. You bring in WrestleMania. You bring in the Final Four, men's and women's version. You possibly bring in the FIFA World Cup, which Nashville is bidding on right now as we speak. The Olympics is a possibility. And not to mention the college football playoff and the national championship.
Yeah, man, that would be awesome.
But the biggest thing here is not only the stadium, you have to build something else with it. And this is the only way I think this will help Nashville success-wise and progression wise. And that is basically to put in place to where people can get back and forth. And it's time to make it easy to commute. And Rossi, in front of me right here, this is called the DART train. And I've lived in Dallas for a few years, and this is one of the main ways that people got back and forth living in the Dallas-Fort Worth community. This right here is so much time saving, makes commute easy, and potentially brings in more people in the Nashville area. It's all right to walk across the bridge. That's fine. That's a fun tradition. But the thing is, people want to get somewhere easier. You have to get around. There's a lot of hotels in the Nashville area, and not a lot of them are close to the stadium. So what do? I got to put a metro system in to make that easier. And I think this has to be a selling point with the stadium. You can't just build a brand new state-of-the-art stadium and not have a way for people to get to it. And how all that works out is basically how the Dallas system's worked out. And basically just a mock-up map right here. You have many areas and many stops throughout the area in Dallas where you go back and forth in certain areas. So if you did this in Nashville, you basically have Broadway as the main setup point, and you probably have to spread it out maybe about 6 or 7 stops towards the stadium, have maybe potentially 4 or 5 trains go through the stadium. That just makes the world so much easier. And I think that's a huge selling point you have to put out, especially knowing that this is going to be the mecca of Nashville.
Yeah, I think that's an awesome idea, man. I like it a lot.
And don't get me wrong, walking across the bridge is fun. But if I can take a DART train to there, I'm going to take it.
Yeah, of course.
I want convenience. And if you're trying to get major players like the Final Four, WrestleMania, the college football playoffs, and even the Super Bowl, you have to find a way to get guys in here simplified.
Yeah, very true, man. I like it.
And Rossi, I know I took up a lot of time on this, but any suggestions you have for this? I'm well open to anything you want to add on to it. Or if you hate it, any notes?
I love it, man. I think it's a great idea all around. I don't have any qualms with it at all. I'm down for I'm just excited at the possibility of even getting a new stadium, and I think it's a great idea, man.
But like I said, it's just I know it's going to take a lot of time, especially with the city, and the Adams family to discuss how much is going to get paid by who. And that's always a messy situation. And, the best we can hope for is that both sides find an equal solution for what we can do. And yes, I know taxes will go up in the area. And that's one thing that people are concerned about. But that just happens a lot, especially in these situations.
Yep.
No matter what you do in a major city or a major market, taxes are eventually going to go up, especially if you're putting in new structures. But this is a structure that not only can house the Tennessee Titans, but brings in much more needed revenue from other grand venues like the college football playoffs, like for the Olympics, like for WrestleMania, like for the World Cup. And that's how you elevate a city to the next status. You build something spectacular, and you build something around it to get to it to make it easier. And then eventually, everybody benefits from it.
I'm down with it.
I've got Rossi's vote, so that might be all that I need.
You're gonna need more than that, I promise you.
It's a start, but it's a damn good start. So I'm more than happy to take it. All right, guys. It's been a great show we've had tonight. Rossi, thank you so much for being on the show. I want to give you another chance to let our viewers know where to find you in all your formats.
Yeah, find me on YouTube, Titans Rossi. On Twitter at Titans Rossi. Also, my channel is a part of the Titan Upload Network. And shout out to Titan Upload and Titans for Life. We've been expanding. We got a lot of good things coming up for in the future. We're thinking about starting a podcast, and we got a lot of good ideas. So, follow us on Twitter at Tighten Up Network, and give us a follow, man. We appreciate all the support. I appreciate all the support. It's been a heck of a season, man. It's been great getting to know you. It's been great being a part of this YouTube community. And when you guys subscribe, you're not just subscribing for content, and this goes for the Power Hour as well. You're subscribing to a community. You know what I mean? It makes you a part of this thing that we got going on, and I built so many good friendships, and that's what subscribing does for you. So subscribe to me and subscribe to the Power Hour as well, and we appreciate it greatly.
You need to do it anyway. All the cool kids are doing it. Don't miss out.
Exactly. Be a part of the cool group. The cool kids.
There you go. There you go. Just don't get left behind. We're trying to bring you in. So, like Rossi said, it's all about community. We love talking football. We love talking sports in general. So, don't forget to hit that like, subscribe button on the way out. Do it for Rossi. Do it for me. Do it because it'll make you a better person. Once again, thank you again for Titan Rossi joining the show. I'm Michael Bishop with the Power Hour. Take care. Tighten up.
Tighten up.
Thank you for watching the Power Hour. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the bell for more content. And you can also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, and TikTok at the Power Hour 615. Thank you. Have a great night.